don't have anything clever to do for this opening. I'm just Jack for some football. So let's bleep and go. Football. Hello, and welcome back to View from the Top of the Goalpost. I am once again Chad, and I am once again Diesel-less this week. Once again, he's feeling a little under the weather. I have a new schedule, so it's just a little harder for us to connect, but we don't want to deny you the wonderful picks that you have grown to love over the course of these few years of us doing this show. So here I am. Let us just get right into it. We have a lot to talk about because it is championship weekend. But first, let us turn back the clock to the divisional round for a little bookkeeping and go through all my bets that I gave you. So, last Saturday for the Houston-Kansas City game, we hit the over. We hit the under. Kansas City covered the -8. We did not hit a single one of our player props in that game, unfortunately. But then for the Washington-Detroit game, Washington did cover +9.5 because they did win. I hope someone took the money line on that. Great money, I'm sure. The over crushed 55.5. We got that right. And then in that game, we got all 5 of our player props right. On Sunday, the Philadelphia Eagles won by 6, so we had a push on that. The under, unfortunately, did not hit in that game, so we got that wrong. For our player props, we went 3 for 5 on that one. And then finally, for the Baltimore versus Buffalo game, the Baltimore money line obviously didn't hit because Buffalo won. The over, however, did hit. And then for our player props, we went 2 for 6 on that one. So that means for last week, we were 5-2-1 against the spread and over-unders. We were 10-11 in player props. So that brought us to 15-13-1 for the divisional round. Let's move on, though, to this week's action. 2 huge championship games to decide who will be playing in the Super Bowl. And we start with the NFC. We have the Washington Commies traveling to the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are once again favored by 6 in this game with an over-under of 47.5. The Eagles are 0-1 against Washington in the playoffs, having only met one time in the 1991 wildcard round. They lost that game 6-20. And the Eagles and the Commies did split their games this year that they played in the regular season. Philly won their first matchup 26-18, and then Washington won the second one 36-33. This game is a game that I am excited to see. It is the evil organization known as the Philadelphia Eagles, basically just one of the teams that everyone, if you're not living in Philadelphia, roots against the Cinderella story, the rookie-led Washington Commies with Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn leading this team through 2 huge road playoff victories, coming back to face their division rival one more time. I feel like the whole world is rooting for Jaden Daniels and the Commies to win this game. They are the much more likable team. Unfortunately, Diesel and I are both picking the Philadelphia Eagles to win this game. And really, if you're going to break it down position by position or group by group, Philly just comes out ahead in too many categories. And the main one is defense. Defense. I know they forced multiple turnovers last week, but that was just kind of the culmination of the Lions. They had a basically turnover-free season all year. So the things always swing. And Detroit was just in a bad situation. They could not play defense against this Washington Commies offense that is absolutely dynamic and wonderful. Philly can play defense against the Commies. And They have played defense against the Commies. Yes, I know the Commies put up 36 points in their final meeting, but Philly wasn't playing in that game. They'd already basically locked up their position in the playoffs, and they couldn't go any higher or lower because of what was going on. And losing that game sucked, but it wasn't the end-all be-all for the Philadelphia Eagles. And this Commies defense it doesn't stop anyone. Don't get me wrong. The Scary Terry and Zach Ertz and Brian Robinson Jr. and Jane Daniels, they're going to be able to put some points on the board, but I don't think they're going to be able to put up more than 17. I think Philly is hungry. They are angry. They have a terrible, terrible head coach, but they seem to win in spite of them. And for everyone who is harping on that their offense needs to improve, do you know how bad and scary they're going to be if their offense does improve? They have a 2,000-yard rusher in Saquon Barkley who cannot be stopped. He has, I think, 6 or more rushes of 50-plus yards this season. He is absolutely dominating and doing it with explosive plays left and right. He is hurdling people backwards, for gosh sake. So I just think if you look at it position by position, group by group, Philly just edges the Commies. I think the final score of this game is 28-17, which means I will be taking the Philadelphia Eagles -6 and the under of 47.5. Don't get me wrong. I'm only putting a confidence of 5 on Philly covering -6 because the Commies have been a phenomenal covering team this year. They do not lose by more than 4 or 5 points usually, it seems like. So I'm very scared of that one. I do, however, like the under in this game, the 47.5. I'm going to put a confidence of 7 on that one. And then to run through some player props, once again, I'm going to take the over of Jane Daniels' total yards of 282.5. Even if they're not scoring touchdowns, I do believe that Jane Daniels is still going to get a lot of yards. I will be taking Hurts 2+ touchdowns in the game. I feel a couple tush pushes will happen regardless. Sorry for the change in attire and maybe change of camera angle. I'm not really sure. I had a bit of a computer issue and had to restart the recording and a few things came up. But we're back. So back into the prop bets I'm taking. I am taking Saquon Barkley over 25.5 for his longest rush of the day. Once again, Saquon has been a master of the explosive play this year. And I don't see the Washington defense, which has leaked like a sieve in a lot of ways, stopping him. So getting a 26-yard rush seems very, very simple. Once again, I am also then riding with Saquon Barkley over 127.5 rushing yards in the game. I know it's insane. I think it might be the highest rushing prop that's ever been in the playoffs. But, I mean, until he doesn't get it, I'm going to keep betting it because he's hit it every single week. And then finally, for a couple Commanders picks, I will be taking Zach Ertz over 3.5 receptions and also Zach Ertz for an anytime touchdown. If the Eagles defense is weak anywhere, it's kind of over the middle. They don't have exactly the greatest linebacker core. Their pass defense and their rushers are great, but that middle of this field can get a little weak at times. So I think Zach Ertz as a safety valve will get a lot of action. I see him scoring, and I see him getting a lot of receptions. So in final thoughts about this game, once again, I am rooting wholeheartedly for the Washington Commies and Jaden Daniels to win this game. I effing hate the Eagles. I truly do. I think they are one of the most annoying franchises in the NFL. Always have, always will. I root for their downfall each and every year. But unfortunately, my heart may be saying the Commies. But this year, my heart has not been very good at picking football games. So I must go with my brain. And I think the Eagles fly this Sunday and head on into the Super Bowl. And just for one final little fun pick, if it comes true, I'll look really smart. If it doesn't, then it doesn't matter. I think this game is close all the way into the fourth quarter. But then I think Saquon Barkley late in the fourth quarter, busts off a 50-plus yard rushing touchdown. And then Jaden Daniels has a chance to maybe get it close again, but that Philly defense gets an interception and closes the game out. And Gangrene heads their way. Is that Gangrene? No, I think that's the Jets. Whatever. The Eagles head their way into the Super Bowl, and I just am very annoyed, even though it's what I called. All right. Moving on to the nightcap for Championship Sunday. We have the AFC matchup of the Buffalo Bills traveling to the Kansas City Chiefs. When I got this line and wrote it down, the Chiefs were still favored by 1.5 points with an over-under of 48.5 points. The Chiefs are 4-2 against Buffalo in the playoffs all time, with Buffalo losing the last 3 games, which all happened within the past 4 years. In 2021, they lost 24-38. In 2022, they lost 42-36. And last year, they lost 24-27. So Buffalo seriously has a monkey on their back in this game. Unfortunately, I don't think this is the year that Josh Allen gets it off of him because, I mean, this is our Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning at this point. This is our 2 perennial best quarterbacks in the league going at it. And I know I'm not trying to discredit Lamar Jackson or anyone else. I'm just saying these 2 guys have been there each and every year for the past few years. And it seems like this determines who's going to win the Super Bowl because the Chiefs have won it a lot. So it's a weird little thing like that. But yes, Diesel and I are both taking the Kansas City Chiefs in this game. Why am I taking the Chiefs? Defense. Defense, 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 defense. I've been saying it all year. The only 2 teams that have been contenders all year that actually have been consistently good at defense. Yeah, they've had a few bad games, but everyone does. But consistently, week in, week out, good at defense. And that is the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. Listen, Buffalo's defense has been solid these past couple weeks. But let's not forget, not more than a month and a half ago, they had a 2-game stretch where they gave up 90-plus points in those 2 games combined. Okay, this defense can leak like a sieve. If they're not getting turnovers, they're not stopping anything. And you know who is just like Peyton Manning's kryptonite was Tom Brady? Do you know who Josh Allen's kryptonite is in the playoffs? Well, it's that devil worshiper himself, Patrick Mahomes. Because listen, I know that they played in the regular season this year and Buffalo won that game 30-21. But listen, we all know the Chiefs don't give 2 Fs about the regular season anymore. This was always all about the three-peat. It was about making it to the playoffs. And they made it as the number 1 seed with only 2 losses, being basically one of the worst ever 15-2 teams that you'll ever see. I mean, legitimately, we talked trash about them all year, and they just won by the grace of Satan himself and the Zebras. Because, yes, I know we have to address the elephant in the room that it seems as if the NFL has pre-scripted this and they want the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, because we all know that if that happens and they hoist that Lombardi trophy, instead of this year coming out and singing like an idiot, this year Travis is going to come out and he's going to propose to Tay-Tay, and it's going to be the biggest effing moment in Super Bowl history. I know we're all really mad about this. I hate it too. Listen, I effing hate it as well. The Chiefs are the second team that I hate the most in the NFL right now. Can't stand it. I do more understand everyone's vitriol hate towards the New England Patriots during the dynasty that was Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, just spanking the league for basically 20 years. I get it now. I get why you all were so mad so much of the time. And just no matter what the Patriots did, you just enjoyed watching them lose or bad things happening to them. I didn't get it then because I was in it. Okay. I was in it. Now, watching it from the outside with this Kansas City Chiefs team, which, don't get me wrong, I like these players. I don't really hate Patrick Mahomes that much. I don't hate Andy Reid, and I really like Travis Kelce, okay? But they just are the team because they just win so much. And I do like history, and I do think they're going to win their third Super Bowl this year and be the first team ever to do it. And there's going to be a lot of question marks about it because of how the season went. And I'm sure there'll be some shitty calls in that Super Bowl, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Back to this championship game. Kansas City just knows how to win. It really, as much as we can say they've gotten a shit ton of calls, and they are statistically, there is so many videos online that you can look up, the luckiest team that's probably ever existed in NFL history with the amount of ways that the ball just breaks their way every time. It's insane. And a lot of people point to black magic, but we can't qualify that or prove it. So we can't say it's true. What we can say is true is Andy Reid is one of the greatest NFL coaches of all time. It's him and Bill Belichick, I feel like, at this point, vying for the spot of greatest NFL coach of all time. And it'll really just determine if Bill ever gets to come back again and when Andy Reid decides to hang it up. Because, listen, they do it two totally separate ways, but the two totally separate ways they have done it has dominated the NFL. And, I mean, this is what? 7 years in a row that the Chiefs have been in the AFC Championship game. I think I saw a stat that Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, or Tom Brady, the Jets quarterback Mark Sanchez, or Patrick Mahomes have been in the Super Bowl for the past umpteen million years. I don't know. Or the AFC Championship game. It's crazy. Like, they're dominant. They're so good. They have really turned and come into form at the best time. They've been playing their best football the last few weeks of the NFL season, not counting that Denver game because they didn't play anyone and they didn't want the Bengals in the playoffs. We all know that. I just think the Chiefs overall are a more complete and total football team. Don't get me wrong. Josh Allen, for the regular season, I still say that Lamar Jackson should be the MVP. Josh Allen's going to win it because, once again, Lamar Jackson probably shouldn't have won it last year, but he did. And so this year he really should win it, and he's not going to. I don't really understand the MVP or how it works. It's very political, it seems, at this point. Whatever. Josh Allen has been masterful this year, and I think he will have a great game. I think this is going to be another classic between these two. But for some things, I am taking the Kansas City money line on this game with a 7 confidence. I am taking the over 48.5 with a 9 confidence. Because once again, as I just read you, the last 3 times they met in this playoffs, they have not failed to top 50 in any of those games. And I don't see this one being the one that they changed that trend. So yes, I will keep moving on. We'll go to some player props here. I think that I am taking both the overs for total yards for both Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. They're both set at 286.5. I am hammering both of those overs. I am also hammering the over of Patrick Mahomes 25.5 rushing yards. I know we didn't hit it last week, but just didn't need to. I think this game he will need to run around a little bit more. Sean McDermott likes to throw a lot of exotic blitzes around there. And I think he will be trying to get Patrick Mahomes off of his spot because Patrick has been a little erratic this year at times. And then finally, I'm also taking Josh Allen to score a touchdown in both halves, just like I did last week with Saquon Barkley. You can get some pretty good money on those if you just bet $100. You can, if it happens, you make your nut right there. And then finally, for 2 anytime touchdown picks, I am taking Noah Gray for the Chiefs and Curtis Samuel for the Bills. Listen, I think this is a great game. I think both teams come out and play. I really hope the refs don't decide this game. I hope the call has gone out from the commissioner's office saying, you guys better shut the hell up this week, okay? There is way too much smoke in the air for any kind of shitty calls for the Chiefs to win this game. Because if the Chiefs do win on a shitty call, the social media and not even just social media, but all media is going to have a field day for 2 weeks because we don't even get a game next week. We only get the Pro Bowl and no one gives a fuck about that. So we will be talking about the calls that are or weren't made in this game for the next 2 weeks. So please, Zebras, I know that the fix is in and you want Kansas City to be there, but just let them win the game or lose the game. Please, just this one time. Like, I just don't want to hear about it for 2 weeks. Finally, I think the final score of this game is 24-30. I think Josh Allen has a shot to win the game, but on the final drive with, the seconds ticking off, the Chiefs defense holds on that final drive, and we see once again the Kansas City Chiefs. I believe it's the Art Modell trophy for the AFC, holding that up and heading their way to the Super Bowl once again. And we get the Super Bowl matchup that I called, but also the one that I least by far wanted to see, with the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Philadelphia Eagles for a rematch from a few years back. Oh, by God. Let's be honest about these four teams. I am truly rooting against three of them. If Buffalo and Kansas City could just lose completely to each other, and then the winner of the Washington-Philly game, which is Washington, was just declared the Super Bowl champ, that would be my greatest scenario, because I don't like Philly. I don't like Kansas City. Buffalo pisses me off because they're now the tops of the AFC East, and the Patriots have to chase them every year. And it's going to be an uphill battle to catch those effers. So I don't like any of those guys. So I'm really, really rooting for the Commies, and I'm really rooting for Buffalo. I don't think either of those teams win, because that is what my heart is saying. And once again, my heart hasn't known shit this year. It's been a real rough year for Chad's heart locks. So I'm going with the brain. I'm taking Philly. I'm taking Kansas City. And I hate it. Right. So those were the picks and my locks for the championship weekend here. Before we close out the show, at this point, all 5 NFL coaching vacancies have been filled, which is kind of crazy. Usually it takes till at least the offseason. A lot of the times they wait for one of the Super Bowl winning teams to, cherry pick from those coaching staffs. But this year, it didn't happen. So thus, I thought I would go through and give you some quick grades and quick thoughts on all of the coach hirings that happened. Obviously, firstly, we will be starting with the New England Patriots, signing Mike Vrabel, and also bringing back Josh McDaniels to be the offensive coordinator. This is an A+, folks. I'm excited, very happy. Should have been Vrabel last year. I know there's some discontent amongst some New England fans because they didn't kick the tires of basically any other coaches. They picked Mike Vrabel and they just went for it. Honestly, I think that was the right move. Mike Vrabel was very highly sought after, and I think that if the Patriots didn't fire the gun and get him signed when they did, there's a real chance that they didn't get him. And Robert Kraft already screwed up last year with Mayo, so I think this is a home run. I think that between Josh McDaniels and Mike Vrabel, the Patriots are back on the right course, and we are one or two good drafts away from competing in the AFC. Let's go, Drake May. Next, the Chicago Bears hired the Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator from the Detroit Lions, who is already firing shots over the bow at everyone else in the NFC North. Gotta love that. This is also another solid A hiring. Ben Johnson was the most sought after coordinator. His offenses have been phenomenal. I think he can do great things with Caleb Williams and all of these pieces that the Bears have accumulated. They really, really need to address the offensive line in this offseason. And Ben Johnson knows that. If you look at the Lions and how they are constructed through the trenches, not outside in. They are constructed inside out. Ben Johnson knows that. I think they will use all of their capital, their draft capital, their free agency capital, all that they can, fix this offensive line. I know that Caleb Williams still needs a little work, but having Ben Johnson back there calling the plays and working with him, I think is a match made in heaven. I know Cliff Kingsbury would have been a great choice as well, but I think getting Ben Johnson was the primo thing for the Bears since they could not get Mike Vrabel, who I heard a lot of Bears fans requesting to get. And at least they didn't get Mike McCarthy. Moving on, the New York Jets have hired Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator from the Detroit Lions. I am going to grade this incomplete. Listen, I can't give a grade on the New York Jets until we find out what is going on with the elephant in the darkness known as Aaron Rodgers. Because that man, don't get me wrong, I think he really has another year in him. I think it would be smart to let him play another year for the Jets. The last few weeks of the season, he started to look like his old self. I think that with a new coach, he clearly didn't get along with Robert Saleh. Aaron Glenn is a defensive guy, so they don't even have to communicate. And you get someone in there who Aaron Rodgers enjoys as offensive coordinator. And maybe, just maybe, I know this team has the devil's curse on them after Joe Namath sold the soul of the entire organization to win that Super Bowl so many years ago against Johnny U. But eventually that contract has to end, right? It can't be a forever contract. There has to be some ending on it. So, but I'm not giving a grade on Aaron Glenn. I do think he's a great defensive coordinator. I don't know if I would have hired him in this situation. The Jets are kind of a dumpster fire. I think you should have gone with a more experienced man to try and right this very erratic ship. But once again, he seems like a really great coordinator. And hell, maybe he will be the next, Sean McVay. And you just never know. That's why I'm giving it an incomplete until we find out what the elephant in the darkness is going to do. Next, the Las Vegas Raiders have hired from his couch, Pete Carroll. This is going to get a B- from me. It gets a B- from me because I really like Pete Carroll. And I think that Pete Carroll, Diesel and I have talked about it many times on this show, if the players buy into Pete Carroll's system and listen to what Pete Carroll is saying, those teams are good. I mean, think of how much success Seattle had with Pete Carroll and with solid rosters, not great rosters, and in a division that's always been scrappy and competitive as hell. Pete Carroll is one of those guys that he's got his system, and if you buy into the system and you get enough guys, they just win. It's how it works. That's why I like it. Why I don't like it, and as Diesel pointed out to me when we were talking about it, Pete Carroll is 71 fucking years old. Okay? He ain't no spring chicken. I know he is a lively, lively man. You can see it on the sidelines. I'm sure he's still working out. Like, he doesn't seem like he has lost a step, but still, he is 71 years old. So to hitch your horse to a very long in the tooth and gray in the mane horse like Pete Carroll just seemed a little crazy. And that's why I get to B minus. I think it really will come down to how this draft goes for the Raiders. They screwed up getting the number 1 overall pick. And I don't know. They have to go quarterback, right? So they trade up. Probably should have traded up last year. Man, they really should have traded up last year. But that's a problem for a different day. And finally, the final hiring, the last team to hire their new head coach. The Dallas Cowboys have promoted from within Brian Schottenheimer. F. Flat out F. F minus even. Jerry, have you lost those last few brain cells that your coked out 80s mind had? Or what the hell is going on? You know what? Listen, if you want to coach the team, just coach the gosh dang team. Hiring another puppet coach? This is insane. Mike McCarthy sucks. Don't get me wrong. I've railed against Mike McCarthy so many times on this show. But if you're going to ask me, would I rather have McCarthy, a Super Bowl winning head coach, or Schottenheimer, a man who has been fired 16 different times, it feels like, which one do I want to take? Like, what the hell, Jerry Jones? You have truly turned the Cowboys into a laughingstock. You need to retire. You need to get the F out of there and let someone else run that ship, because you are running it aground, and this is embarrassing. Schottenheimer is not a head coach, and I will gladly eat my words if next year the Cowboys go undefeated and win the Super Bowl. Good for you. I am totally okay with that. I don't really hate the Cowboys as much as many people do, but I can't not listen to the multitude of voices from every level, from fans to media to like every kind of insider report, that everyone is laughing at the Cowboys for this hire. This is the dumbest thing I have ever seen. So flat out F for this hire. Good luck to you, Cowboys. Well, that's a show for you, folks. Hope you have enjoyed the Championship Sunday predictions, plus a little bit of coach talk about the new hires that are going on here in the NFL. As always, we thank you so very, very much for listening. Make sure you are commenting, sharing, and subscribing. And down there in the comments, why don't you tell me which one of these 4 teams do you want least to win the Super Bowl that are left? Because everyone has a team they hate. So I want to know, is it Kansas City? Is it Philly? Do you want one of the other 2 not to win? I mean, I'll be shocked if it's either of the other 2. It's got to be Kansas City and Philly that you're rooting against, I feel like. But yes, I thank you so much for listening to the show or watching the show here on YouTube. I hope you tell your friends, your neighbors, your enemies, your coworkers, or anyone else who will listen to you to also check us out here on your favorite podcasting platform or YouTube or wherever the hell you're listening and watching. As always, though, please, the world out there right now, it's a little scary. It's a little crazy. Just remember, let's be nice to each other. Let's be respectful. Remember, we are all just humans trying to live our best lives. So don't be a dick. With that being said, though, I have been Chad, and Wally hasn't been here. He has been Diesel. He gave his picks, obviously. I talked about him. There's only one way that we close out this show, though, and it's with my co-host's favorite line. Let's go watch some football. Bye. This has been a Visionaries Global Media production. Visionaries Global Media, envisioning excellence on a global scale.